learned friends, I hope you're all well. Okay, this week we're going to look at making something a little bit easier. Okay, I'm going to be easy on you this week. So, what we got first? Well, I know this looks like quite a long look, but don't worry about the length. It is a beautiful Union 3-lever made by Joshua Parks, England. Simple, dead easy, internal door lock, and the bidding is, if you can even call that. It's dead easy one, dead easy. This video is going to be so easy, unbelievable. But for the newbies out there and the guys that's just getting into understanding lever locks, this video may help you. Okay, for the ones that know all about lever locks, well, thanks for watching. Sit back, enjoy, get a cup of tea, and you never know, you might learn something new. Okay, so bitting, Union. Well, first and foremost, we've got to have a look what's inside the little bugger, ain't we, really? So we can try and figure out how we're going to open it without that key. There's only 2 screws on here. Try and wiggle it open a little bit. There we go. I don't want a bit shooting out at me, thank you. There's a little plate thing there. I've got to remember, I've got to push it in and drop it down. Okay, we need to remember that part, so we don't need that bit. So as you can see, we have obviously this mechanism here is for your latch. You can turn that around either way. So we've got a lot of gumph for your latch, and none of that's going to involve you picking anything because latches are latches. Okay, so the key doesn't do anything to do with that latch, the door handle does. And then up here, right out the way, we've got a longish bolt, and we've got a stack of 3 levers, dead easy, with plastic spacers in between. We've got our bolt here. There's our gate of our levers. That's our little bolt stump. Obviously that needs to pass through that gate to go into that position for that bolt to come back. Okay, so first of all we're going to have a look, and we're going to take these little levers off. Now there is a number on. There's yeah, we've got a number 3, the first one, so we've got to remember that one. First one, number 3. Don't forget, spacer. Take the next one off. Remember the numbers for me. Next one is a number 1. Don't forget that. A spacer. And the final one, let's get him off. Be very careful with those springs. That was a good suggestion. If you're taking something apart for the first time that you've never taken apart before, you've all got smartphones now. They've all got cameras on them. Take a picture. It might help you when you get stuck with the key. I can't remember how that went back in there. And the last one's number 1. So take a picture, okay? Or make video, and then you know. Last one's number 1. Remember that. Okay, we've got that. Remember, there's our 3 levers. Let's put them so you can all see them. There they all there. Okay. We're not going to worry about them at the minute. Now what we need to concentrate on is this part where your key, obviously you're going to pass through the body of the door or whatever, and the key is going to go up to that point, and as you can see, your key doesn't go all the way into that. Try and get it to focus into that little groove at the top. It just goes there, and there's a little space there. It's that little tiny space between the top of the key. Okay, we got to remember, I talked about that before. So your key will interact, and it's the back end of that key. Yeah, so that's going to sit there. That's going to be interacting with that bolt. There you go. So there's not much of it really. Lifts levers, is there really, when you look at it like that? Obviously it's going to work from the other side as well. That's why it's that shape. But there's only a very small portion of this actual key blade that's actually going to have contact with the levers, really. Just enough for those 3 levers. 2 of them the same and 1 isn't, so there you go. But that space is important. We need to remember about that space, because what we make and we shove in there, okay, we need to think about that space. Now the other restriction we're going to get, we're going to put this case back on now, minus the levers for now. Yeah, we're going to try and get that sash bit in there. Right, So whatever you got to go in there is you're gonna be resting on the bottom of that keyway. Okay, so it's going to go in there and you'll be resting on the bottom of that keyway. So whatever you make, it's got to be a shape to go up into that space, and the distance between there and there is very important, and we need a little bit of space so we can move. So whatever we're going to make, it's got to fit in that space, go through that gap. Possibly, if you did use this in a door and not for lock sports, obviously legal purposes, of course, guys, you'd need to go into an angle through the keyway and thread it through, and we'll talk about that in a bit more detail. Remember, guys, always keep things legal. Right, so we've got to think about two things now: that space there and the space what we're going to need to make. Okay, are you with me so far? So we've got a basic understanding of that lock. Now what we're going to need, well, I've already pre-cut these now. Now all they are is, now I'm going to use about 21 centimetres. Now here goes mil, centimetres, thous. I'll try and do it in centimetres and millimetres today. I know I'm a bugger. Right, I'm going to use 21 centimetres, but you can use 20, 19 if it's for lock sport, even shorter. So 21 centimetres of this spring steel. Now what we've got here, we've got a 2mm, which is the smaller one, and we have a 2.6. that equivalents to 12 SWG and 14 SWG. 2.6 millimeters, 2 millimeters. Two very important sizes, and I'll talk about those in a bit more detail later on. So I've gone for 21 centimeters long, I've got 2.6, and I have 2 mil. Now we're going to do a bit of shaping. We've got to make something first and foremost to tension that bolt. We're going to do everything for the bolt on the left today. Okay, lock sport's left, got to remember that. Lock sport left. Everyone does most things left because it's easier. You can see what you're doing. This is about lock sport. Okay, so everything's going to be designed for the left. For the right, it will be the same but mirrored. Okay, because your bolt will be on the side, so the bends are going to be the other way. But we'll just stick to left today. So we're going to need the thicker one for this, because this is 5 gauge. If it was 7 gauge, you'd have to use the thinner one, the 2mm, but we're going for use 5 gauge so we can get a 2.6mm in there, no problem. And we're going to use one of those. Okay, and then we're going to need a 2mm to make a tool to pick it with. Now you can make a pick, you can make lifters, you can make all sorts of things with 2mm. 2mm is going to fit in that gap really quite with a bit of room. The 2.6 is going to be quite snug, but it's going to go in there. And why do we do these two sizes? First and foremost, let's get the case. This will show you. So we've got a little bit of slop. So we got a little bit of movement there. Okay, that's a 2.6, and then this is the 2. Loads of movement. So we can jiggle about and do lots of different shapes and sizes and whatnot. Why do we use 2.6? Well, what you got to do is try and make something as rigid as you possibly can with the materials that you've got. Because this is spring steel, it's going to flex and give back. The weaker the metal and the thinner it becomes, you're going to lose some of that control on your tension. So I needed something with quite a high spring steel content. It's quite rigid and as thick as I could possibly get away with to make it a rigid tool. I want it to be quite rigid and quite sturdy in that particular keyway. I can use the 2mm. I could, yeah, I could use 2mm, but I'm going to get a lot more flex out of it as I start controlling that tension. So I'm not going to get the feedback that I need. So that's why you can use it, but I'm going to get better results with a thicker material. So that's why we use 2 different sizes. Okay, so enough waffle about why. Let's go and see what we need to do next. So we're going to need to, first and foremost, we'll create something That's going to go in there and tension that bolt. Okay, so we're going over to the vise and we'll turn this into something similar to a tension tool. So I shall see you over there. Okay, we're over at the vise. Poor old girl, she's all worn out and bless her. I've actually turned the jaws over, so I swapped them over and flipped them so I could get more use out of it. But as you can see, all the sanding and filing and the things that I do, they don't last long. So I'm after some more 4-inch jaws for a record vise. Anybody got any? Do a deal. Right, okay, so we've got a 2.6 12 SWG piece of spring steel. Okay, now for this, what I'm going to do is I've got another lock. It's a 3 lever. It's a Union again, so that height's exactly the same as the lock over there. It's the same brand. It's 3 lever. It's very, very similar. So what I need to do is measure how high off that point I need to be. Now always go too much, guys. Just that's why I made this a too long. Always go too much. You can always cut off, but you can never put on. So don't try and get your measurement exact. Now we're going to work out, I'm going to go for this particular first cut. Okay, my first cut, I'm going to measure about to there. I can see that little, see where that little hump is on that case design. Right, I'm going to measure up from the bottom of the keyway with my finger really roughly now, and I'll go to the right to the top of that, and I'm going to measure that. Now I'm looking about 33 millimeters, that is. Okay, from there to there, 33 mil. But this is a guess, a complete guess. So I'm going to get that now in my hand. I've measured it out. It's rough guess sort of stuff. Drop it in the vise. Make sure it's nice and square. Okay, don't put too much pressure on your actual wire. Don't squash it in the vise. Hold it, nip it. Now you can use those as magnetic little vise grip things, but I don't really find them that useful. Not really. I'll end up burning them and melting them, and they all get distorted when I put pressure on them. So just don't go too crazy with your force on that vise. You're not trying to clamp it in too much. You nipped it. You've got it where you need it to be. Right, we're going to need said hammer. Let's back off a little bit. Said hammer. Okay. And what I'm going to do now is I've got my fingers here, try and get around the camera. Now I'm going to hammer towards myself, okay? But I'm not going billy-o at it, okay? See, look, I'm bouncing it. I'm not driving a nail in. I'm almost just letting the weight of that hammer take that shape. See the noise change? The noise has changed. It changes pitch when you go through. If you think you're going to go whack, whack, what happens? Because there's a lot of spring steel in these rods. They're split. They'll split there in that corner. You'll see where you've been hammering the crap out of it. It will split. Now this is like a little L. Okay? Way too big. I know it's going to be too big, but we're not going to worry about that. The next point we've got to work out is, I won't cut it into the point of which way, what orientation do we want to be putting the pressure down. Now, because this is bolt on the right, so you need to put pressure the same way, clockwise. Okay, so your tension is going to be there. You're going to be putting pressure on that bolt clockwise. So you'll need to make this shape so it bends out so you can grab it clockwise. Put pressure, forced downward pressure clockwise. Then you've got to work out how deep the lock is. Okay, so you think, right, now the lock's probably about, I don't know, what's that, 10-15 mil. Okay, that's the lock, but then I need to add a bit of movement, so you go back there. Then I need to be able to probably, if I wanted to do it in a wooden block as practice, I need to be about there. So you give yourself a rough guess of what you're going to need it for. First and foremost, you need to cover the distance of the lock, because otherwise your tension piece will be catching on the case, so you need a bit of room. You need to be able to get your hand in and around things, so that's important too. So I'm going to go out for, I think, comfortably My guess. It's guesstimate. This is. You can make them all different sizes. You haven't got to make them this size. I'm going for 40 mil. Okay, I'm guessing 40 mil, and I need to go in a clockwise tension downward direction. So I need to put this back into the vise. I've gone for about 40 mil. Now this is just a pure guess. Make sure it's all nice and level and straight. Okay. Now, because I want to go clockwise, I need to make sure I'm going to push this bar away from myself. Okay, so like that. Now I've got an angle straight above a little bit. Now what I'm going to do, I'll try and get my arm out of the way around this camera angle. I'll try and go this way. Flatten them in a little bit. Now this point here is more or less straight against that, but I need it to be slightly lower, so I'm going to put a little bit of pressure on that. Just bend it a little bit. There you go. So we have a tension tool like that. Okay, because I didn't smack the crap out of it with an hammer on that point and I bent it with my hand, it's not split. But if I went whack, whack, like I said before, you could split them quite easily. So that's a sort of shape. You don't want that to be quite straight. So see, it's slightly off cock. That's what you want it, because you want that to be slightly over there, and that's to be sort of parallel to what you're going to be putting tension on. So now the point is, we've got said lock. We need to see, thread it through. See now, see I'm just nipping off. I can just feel the back of that bolt, but I've got a gap there. I can't get the tool all the way in. Right, and now I need to reduce this tension part. So what I'm going to do is probably take off 2 or 3 mil at a time, test it, take off 2 or 3 mil, test it, take off 2 or 3 mil. Now you can file it, you can cut it, you can grind it, whatever you want to do. Try and keep it flat though. So I'm going to reduce it down a tiny amount. What did I say, about 2 or 3 mil, I think. I'm going to try it again. Now this is what you have to do, trial and error, trial and error. Right, it's going to get loud. I've got to watch the camera, try not to set fire to myself. I know, nip a little bit loud. Right, that's the quickest way of doing anything, isn't it? So it's going to be hot. I've nipped a little bit off there. Not a lot. I'll try it again. Now, we get closer. Look, I'm into the body, but I can't push back. I can feel the top of that particular bolt and that gap. And what we'll do is we'll go and get that said lock that I was messing with, and I'll show you what we're trying to do. See, I'm trying to get through to that point there, but I don't want to be all the way to the top, and I'm still a little bit sitting on the bottom. So again, I need to take 2 or 3 more mil off that. Okay. So I'm going to take another little tiny amount off. Nice and square. It's going to get loud again. There you go. Now, if you look for the back, this is just off the bottom of the case. Now I can get hold of that bolt, see, look, and I'm in there flat. And I'll be putting tension on the clockwise direction in that gap. So that's going to look like, through that case, in that gap there, I'm going to see where I'm sitting on the bottom of that little gap there. Now that's just probably about a mil too long. So a little tiny bit more finishing. And this tool is going to be working okay. I need to be dropping just a little bit further down in that little groove there. I don't want to be right to the top because it will catch. And like I showed you before, it will wedge up. So a tiny little bit more. And we've got our tension tool. We can put tension on that bolt. Now what we need to do is make something to pick those levers. So that's going to be next. Okay, we have the 2 mil spring steel piano wire. We got my pliers, Me bow nose pliers, me worn ones, the ones that's not going to nip me so much as the new ones. I'm still trying to bed them in. They're still fairly not worn out. I need to wear them out just a little bit more. They're like shoes, these pliers are. You need to wear them in to make them comfortable. We don't want to get nipped, do we? Right, so what we're going to do, we've got 2 mil. So now, I'm going to make a tool, because that bitting is quite crap. I'm going to make a tool to replicate what that key looks like. I could make a single pick, and if I was to make a single pick, I'll do a little bit too much. All I'll do is, now this is 2 mil stuff. This is like, you're going to need to be seriously strong to do this, because it is really, 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 really tough stuff. You can see my old pliers don't go all the way down now. A little bit more. They won't go to the full angle that I need. So I need my new pliers now, just to get that nice and level. Get more or less level. We can always do little adjustments with it. There we go. We're more or less level. L shape again. Everything seems to be L shape all round in this industry, don't you think? Right, so if I was to make a pick wire, there you go. We've got a pick wire now. You'd have to cut that to the right size, flatten it off either side, put a little handle on it, and you're off to go. Pick wire. You can use 2 mil in these particular locks because of the lever spacing's quite wide. Now we're not going to make it a pick mill. We're not going to make a single pick today. We're going to make a little tiny weenie. It says, now I've got to try and measure out this right, and this way you nip your fingers. This can be a bugger. Right, so we're going to, I've got to get this square. Watch my fingers. Make sure, got to get the size. Now I do everything but eye. Too big and it's no good. Too small and it's no good. Okay, let's try there. Just get into the shape, slightly out a little bit. I'm going to replicate that key. That's what I'm trying to do. I just want to get that nice and straight. Okay, we're getting there. Straighten it up a little bit more. She's off a cock a little bit. So what I need to do, get in the vise. Careful, always be careful. Don't force things with this stuff. It is wire, it will move into the shapes that you want it, but you got to be careful. I like things nice and straight. That's more or less straight. We've got that shape. We've got to put an handle on it now. I've had to grab hold of it, so I'm going to go for about a little bit more. Get it nice and straight. Right, we'll go for that. I need to do that to get that straight there. Do that straight there. Straighten that up there. And then we're getting the tool now. We're getting the tool to open that lock. Right, now that's too big, isn't it? Far, far too big. So what I need to do is nip that down. Now I've got to try and think how wide those levers were and how wide the case is. So this is your trial and error bit, guys. You're going to have to try and nip it down a little bit, test it. Nip it down a little bit, test it. Right, so I'm going to guess. I can't give you all the numbers because each lock's slightly different. But I'm going to guess on this one, okay? Loud again. Get me foil. I ain't going to need much more than that. That bitting was tiny, remember? Sticking halfway out. We ain't going to need much more than that, I don't think. Get all the rough edges off. We don't have any rough edges on that. So it catches on the inside of the lock. So that's all the rough edges have gone on that. I wanted to take a tiny bit more off that one, didn't I? Get me foil. sandpaper. There you go, take them edges off. Don't want no rough edges. Right, we have said tools to have a go at that lock. Shall we go and test them out? Is it going to work? Let's go and find out. Let's put her back together again. So I'll try and do this around the camera the best I can. Put the first one in. Spacer. Second one in. Now this is the fun part, I think, of lock sport, and especially messing with lever locks, because you can get at them. You're not taking all sorts of circlips off and fighting with pins and springs. And I know there's springs in these, but they're not as tiny. So I think they're easy to work with. I know they're quite antiquated, but they're still in use today. So where's that little gap? There's a little gap in there, I remember that. And now there's this bloody handle for my sash. That was it. I need to put that back in there. My screws back in. Have we got it right? Did we remember the right? Of course we did. Right, let's move over to the old bench and we'll give it a little whiz. Let me move some stuff out the way, as prepared as always. Not. I'll get rid of that one. Oh, what did you think of that tool I made last week? Did you enjoy that video? That was something a bit different. Right, let's scoot across. It's tidy as usual. Not. You gotta see what I'm doing. There you go. It's all done in one go. Is it gonna work? I don't know. I don't know. Who knows? Let's give it a go. Can we get me tension tool here? Well, that's a good start, isn't it? We got hold of that. I'm going to try and get hold of them levers now. No, see if we can try and get them from the back first. We're getting no joy from the back, so I'm going to try whizzle this round. We're going to try from the front. Can we get underneath it? Try and find out, feel where you are. And a bit jiggery poker, eh? But we did. Can we get the tools out? Yes, we can get the tools out. A bit jiggery poker, but we opened it. That didn't take long, did it? So I've not tested it, or I just guessed of what we got. Again, we're going to go in. We're all locked up. We're going to lift those levers up. I'm going to open that lock. And it didn't take long, did it? Okay, we could do a little bit more finishing, but a couple of nice little shrink wrap handles on there. And we've got a nice simple tool to open a simple lock. Right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. And for my supporters this week, supporters, my friend, I have not forgotten about you. I am waiting on another lock, and when that does turn up, I shall put it up for the prize draw. But as well as, courtesy of Steve, we've still got some of these left. Steve, thank you very much. From the States, we still have some of these Americans left. The 1100 series. One of these is going to be part of the prize as well. So there's going to be this and that other lock when it turns up. And when it turns up, guys, I shall do a video on the website, and you'll get to see that firsthand this week. Guys, thank you for your support. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, put a thumbs up. If you liked it, put a comment. If you're not subscribed, subscribe already. Everyone stay safe, stay well, and I shall see you all very, very soon. Ta-da!